And welcome back to Jeff Koinange, live at the Villa Rosa Kempinski, here with an exclusive interview with Queen's Counsel, lead counsel, Karim Khan. He's the one who led the team that just got this decision to terminate the case against Deputy President William Ruto. So, tweets coming in very thick, very fast. Karim, you're going to love this. You're going to get on Twitter by the end of this show.
No,
listen to this. Min Krasi says, Ocampo did a shoddy job. Will justice ever prevail? Hold the thought, hold the answer. Timothy Toroy Teach says, we want to install Karim Khan as a Kalenjin elder. What do you say? Kachwani Wanjohi says, Karim Khan, would you consider to be an ICC prosecutor if the job opened up? And then GK Goima, he's asking, will Ruto and Sang be compensated for expenses and time wasted? Let's start with the last one.
I don't think there can be a compensation enough for the turmoil, the harassment, the pressure and the defamation of innocent people being wrongly charged. I think it's a point of drawing a line and moving forward. His Excellency William Ruto he's got a mandate from the people of Kenya with the President to make Kenya better tomorrow than it was today. And I think that is going to be the focus of his focus, rather than looking back at the ICC. He faced his accusers, Jeff. He confronted them. We challenged them in court. And the judges have said no reasonable set of judges could possibly convict. I think that's yesterday's story. And the exciting story, really, for the DP and for the President is tomorrow's Kenya, harnessing the potential of really such a nation as this, where the communities, the human resources, the geographical location has endless possibilities if Kenya can pull together for the future.
Karim,
that's the focus.
Did Kenya stand up to the ICC, you think? Because for years, for decades, or since its start in '98, African countries were viewed as banana republics. What happened in cases went as the ICC said. Did Kenya stand up to the ICC?
I think Kenya is not, without being disrespectful to any country, there's a massive difference in Africa. CAR, DRC, Sierra Leone, Liberia during Charles Taylor's time, that's not Kenya. The President has said Kenya is not a banana republic. If anybody comes here and doesn't have baggage of colonialism or have preconceptions that somehow if you're black we're primitive and if you're white you're somehow advanced, if you come here rightly thinking, you see the potential of this country. Kenya is a sovereign country, it's a mature country, it has an important part to play in the international community. It's one of the only countries, I think only two, in the whole of the African Union that's paid its dues to the ICC, that's paying for the prosecution and the judges and the registry and the defense and the whole stuff. Kenya has been part of parcel of the international community's drive for international justice. Look what it's doing with Al-Shabaab as a service to humanity. Kenyan blood is being spilt, not only for Kenya, we're helping the region. So Kenya acts as it should, as a sovereign state. It's not a second-class country, and people should get used to African countries acting as equals around the table. The days of colonialism are well gone, Jeff, and it should be consigned to history.
But Karim, at the same time, with an election less than 17 months away, and talk by the opposition saying, if the election goes to a runoff, we're not taking this to the Supreme Court. Translation, we're going to take it to the streets. With what's happened at the ICC, 6 original suspects, none left, people feel, you know what, you can get away with it. It's a dangerous path we're treading in some ways. People are worried.
Well, nobody should incite violence and hate speech. But the Kenya of today is a very different beast. It's much more mature than Kenya of 2007. There's a new constitution. It's not small. Majimboism. There's a devolution. There's new Chief Justice, new judiciary, new police, very good Attorney General. You've got a whole new system in place. So individuals that think they can incite violence, I think they should know that even in Kenya there are processes that will stop that kind of behavior. The rule of law will prevail, and Kenya has the apparatus to make sure that happens. And I think that reality that the whole country needs to pull forward and not self-destruct again will make sure that sober minds prevail. And there are sober minds everywhere, even in the opposition, not just in government. And there's hotheads everywhere. And we've got, Kenya has got responsible leadership in the President and Deputy. I expect that the leadership of the opposition will also, they have it within them, to be equally responsible. Because if you love Kenya, you cannot incite violence. If you love Kenya, you should argue what is wrong to be improved, commend what is right, but violence is not the answer. And I think the Kenyan people will reject anybody who tries to divide. They will applaud people that want to build the country together. Kenya has been faced this reality even in the last election. As an outside commentator, choices have consequences, and they decided democratically in endorsed elections that particular individuals were best suited to have the helm of leadership. And I think Kenyans will not support anybody who incites violence.
Yeah. My good friend Michael Opondo is saying, Jeff, please ask QC Khan why he's so much less combative on the bench than he is in court and press conferences. He's more persuasive this way.
Really? Well, thank you for that. But you know, if I'm dealing with somebody very reasonable like you, Jeff, you know, I can be myself, I can smile, I can laugh, because, you know, I'm dealing with a reasonable person. But when you deal with somebody who says, you know, the lights are here but it's dark, and says, look, it's sunshine and let's sunbathe, I'll say, come on, you're not serious. Of course you have to react accordingly.
Yeah. So, do you enjoy being in court? Do you enjoy being that guy in court?
It's a privilege. I don't view it as, I don't take it for granted. I think being an advocate, I don't view it as a job. I enjoy it immensely, and I view it as an immense honour. I mean, I'm nothing special. You know, I'm very, very lucky indeed to be, have the opportunities to be a member of the bar, to represent, not cases, I don't really care about the cases, but to, you know, there's a difference between representing somebody who's got a very technical defence because maybe they did something, but you want to skip over it, and representing innocent people. And I had the great distinct pleasure in representing both Ambassador Mathaura and His Excellency William Ruto, defending innocent people. And I think there's no higher calling to do the law. If you can defend innocent people in a process, it's a privilege.
Yeah. David Diangui, how much does QC Karim Khan charge per case? Don't answer that.
Whatever it is, it's not enough, my friend.
You're right. Look at you, man. Koske Julius Diego says the cases should have been terminated with an unequivocal acquittal so that the suspects can benefit. Are you disappointed there was no outright acquittal?
Well, I think it's bizarre. I think it's bizarre. I mean, to go through a process of 6 years and 2.5 years of trial, not even there to be a whisper from the prosecution about mistrial, for it to be not to receive submissions from the parties about mistrial, to make everything focus on guilt or, you know, should the case be terminated and not guilt is entered. It's like bringing a rabbit out of the hat. And the evidence referred to by, with respect, a judge who I have a lot of respect for, a very brilliant judge, the presiding judge, Chilia Boyisuji, relies upon evidence that wasn't even before the court. Newspaper articles, evidence that no submissions have been heard on. You know, I don't know if it's a Google search or whatever, but judicial notice was taken of documents not in the court record. I think that's not right.
I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to have to read Dr. David Matsanga's tweet.
Right.
Remember him?
I do indeed.
The fat Ugandan. He says, witnesses were procured and Karim Khan has taken all the credit without thanking people who stood firm till the end.
Well, I don't get engaged in any pejorative statements, and I'm hardly slip myself, Jeff. But the point is, I think the prosecutor said today in her statement, and I agree with her, any witness who comes and speaks the truth should be commended. And I think there are many witnesses that I've spoken to that haven't come before the court because we were not required to call it, that I applaud. Any prosecution witnesses that come to speak the truth, regardless of the consequences, is a hero in my mind. I'm not saying it today. I'm not saying it because of the decision. I said it in the Norfolk Hotel, I think it was 2 years ago. I used the word they're heroes to me, whether they're for the prosecution or for the defence. But end of the day, our job, my job is a humble one. It's to investigate, review, analyse evidence, and try to help the judges come to what is the correct verdict.
Yeah.
And I think they've come to the correct verdict to the extent of acknowledging that the prosecution foundations were not only built on foundations of sand, but had been washed away a long time ago.
Yeah. In your legal mind, Karim, do you think we'll ever get justice, or we'll ever find out who was behind the post-election violence?
Well, I don't want to say I told you so, but I said at the beginning of the speech, of my opening speech 2.5 years ago, the victim representative was there, and it was the court, the prosecution was there. I said at the end of this process, we will know who is not responsible for the PEV. Because of the way the prosecution have conducted this case, and the way that the legal representative of the victims parroted the prosecution and didn't really push the investigations as they could have, we don't know more. We know who's not responsible. The reality is, Judge Fremer has said that the fundamental foundations of the case about network wasn't there. He said there was scant evidence, the evidence changed, it wasn't there. And he went so far, if you read the judgment, I'm not making it up, he said, I tried myself. It's the prosecution to plead that foundational case, the network, by which all this crime is alleged to have committed. He couldn't do it. He said he went himself and started looking, trying to find a network, and said it's not there. So, there's been massive failings by the prosecution, and I think it's a great credit. My personal view is it's great credit. Whatever is said, it's a great credit to His Excellency William Ruto and Joshua Arap Sang, and all of the six, that they were not like Sudan or other countries. They cooperated with the court. They came in, they answered, they faced up to the level they were required, their accusers, and end of the day, the prosecution, with every witness they wanted to called, haven't proved the case.
Yeah. Is the reputation of the ICC at stake now, Karim? What do you think?
I think reputations are not built in a day. They can be lost in a day. They're not built in a day. And international justice had been built since Nuremberg. And that's why I get annoyed. It's not a joke, it's a passion. I have passion for international justice. But it's not the legacy of a Louis Mourinho Ocampo to squander. It's a very serious business. It's built upon the suffering of Nuremberg, the horrors of the Balkans, the genocide of Rwanda, the suffering in the genocide in the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, or what happened in Sierra Leone, and so many other countries. And the international community had this great idea, and I thought it was a great idea, that where states are unwilling or unable, let the community of nations come together and dispassionately, professionally give capacity to make sure there is justice. That's a lofty goal. It's a goal I believe in. And unfortunately, Ocampo wasn't driven, it seems to me, by those lofty principles. It was sound bites, and it was, celebrity. And in the end of the day, the court is weaker, and international justice is weaker because of these wrong steps of the prosecution.
Yeah.
Now, it's easy to keep a ship afloat when it's watertight, but when it's taking in water, you've got to work furiously to throw off the dead, the water, and stay afloat. I think Fatou Bensouda, who I said I've got a lot of affection for and respect for, has a massive undertaking to make sure the ship is seaworthy, and I don't think it is seaworthy. I think we want it to be seaworthy. We see there's a flag above it. I don't know which state flies the flag, but it's in international waters, but it's not seaworthy. It should be, and I'm not saying it should be scrapped, but it needs to be put into a dock and repaired significantly. And unless it's repaired significantly, unless you can say that's a hole, and unless we deal with that hole, it's going to keep on taking in water, not in Kenya, but when it sails to other shores. It will take in the same water because the same holes are not filled. International justice and the credibility of the ICC will not improve. It's like if you're an alcoholic, the first thing you say, I'm an alcoholic, you must accept there's a problem.
Yeah.
And there's a problem, unfortunately, in the investigative focus of the OTP, ICC. And there's no point having very good lawyers in the OTP in their nice black gowns in court, very nice people, if they've got a dog's breakfast of a case and they're trying to peddle a lie with whatever intentions, a case that doesn't stand up. You must get it right in the investigative stage, away from the camera, away from the bright lights, roll up your sleeves and get to the truth. You can't do that in the CNN news cycle, as Ocampo tried to do, this nonsense about, Gaddafi, if you remember, Viagra to help him do. Of course, it's nonsensical. But he was trying to conduct international investigation, serious business, in the glare of the CNN, BBC World, Al Jazeera news cycle, that is a recipe for disaster, and that disaster is brought to the ICC.
Yeah. Bottom line, Karim, is this case over for you? You're going to say, I mean, are we going to see more of this, or according to you, in your legalese, in your expert opinion, is it over?
I think it's over. I don't think there's going to be. It will be a very sad day, and it will be very corrosive to confidence in the ICC to try to resurrect a case that was dead long ago. You know, I mentioned, I'll go back to it as one example, you know, a Rule 68 statement that the prosecution said is the gold standard, that talks about a man being in a meeting with William Ruto planning violence in 2007,
yeah,
that had been in the grave for 7 years. That kind of being oblivious to the truth, that kind of imperative that the show must go on, we assert, therefore we are right, the emperor knows, can do no wrong, l'état c'est moi, that kind of philosophy is consigned to the days of Louis XIV. It has no place in an international court that doesn't know, a concept of prosecutorial infallibility. We're all fallible, myself including the prosecution. They got it wrong in this case. It's time to realize they've got it wrong, be humble, and say, let's not get it wrong again. And if they're driven by that principle that justice is bigger than a case, they will not come back and try to make innocent men guilty. They will not come back for any of the Ocampo 6.
You know, you could have walked away after you were successful in Ambassador Muthara's case. You could have walked away, Karim. Why keep coming back? What is this about you?
You know, I think, I don't know, as I said, you do the law not for a job, not for a fee. I've done a lot of pro bono case. I represented the victims pro bono in Cambodia. You know, I love the law. And when you feel in your small, humble, maybe insignificant way, you can serve in a small way something that's called justice, I think it's a privilege. It's something you can't. Why be a lawyer? You know, you may as well be an accountant, or be a, no disrespect to accountants, but you may, it's something that is bigger than I am. And I think all of us aspire to do something bigger than we are. We're humble, we're flawed, we are insignificant. But what should keep all of us going, what should keep a country going, is the dream that we're bigger than we are today. And I think when you have a chance to serve as an officer of the court and be a counsel for somebody who, of course, you have an open mind, you don't presume they're innocent. You know, when I did Muthara case, I told the DP, I thought, because we're innocent, I knew the President's case intimately, I knew the Ambassador Muthara's case innocently, I thought, they must be guilty. You know, it must be, Joshua Sang and Koski, it must be them, because we're innocent. And so when I met the DP, I of course I heard what he had to say, but I'm not, I don't just, I don't speak a line. I'm not an actor. I don't just have a script and say this guy. I make my own mind up, and with circumspection you start reviewing the evidence, and I was shocked. I thought I would never see a case as bad, as false, as poorly investigated as the case of Ambassador Muthara and of course the President. And I was really absolutely shocked to see that the DP's case was even worse. So you keep that open mind, you keep questioning, can it really be this bad? Testing the prosecution evidence, testing your own evidence, and you get to see a picture. And I'm glad, even though we never showed our full story, we never showed the defense case, which really, I think is a mega story. I mean, how the prosecution got it so wrong, and how witnesses, a group of witnesses, not all witnesses, managed to deceive them so extensively. And the case, came from the Rift all the way through Wacky to the foreign shores of The Hague and became an international story, when I think a good police officer in any jurisdiction, inner city New York, inner city London, inner city Kibera, any local police officer who's good would say, come on, this doesn't stack up. And yet it managed to occupy the international community, the ICC, the Republic of Kenya for 6 years. I think we can't let that happen again.
Yeah. You're probably going to go down as the only lawyer who's represented both sides of the same case.
Well, that's, as I said, it's a privilege. I've had, and my team, Dato Shamla, Esafal from the Gambia, Dato Shamla from Malaysia, some of my juniors, very good people. They've worked tirelessly. I'm the front man, I'm in the TV, but my role really is very small. I get the Twitter freeze or whatever they are, but the stars of the show are the team that work so phenomenally hard, and they've managed to persuade the judges and show the judges that the foundations of this case, the key witnesses that attended the court, they were not telling the truth.
Speaking of Twitter, Abdulrazak Aden Ali. He says,
it's a Muslim name, so I can get it right.
Thank you. He says, in fact, say salam alaikum wa
rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
That, yes.
So my answer, you know what the answer is? You know Kikuyu, but you don't know Arabic. My friend, wa alaikum assalam.
Barakatuh.
No. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Hello.
Is the big response. So you teach me some Kikuyu, I'll teach you a little bit of Arabic.
Shukran, Habibi.
Shukran, Jazakallah.
Listen, you got about 30 seconds, man. That's your camera there. I liked what you said to Kenyans earlier on. Kenyans who are really patriotic. Because we lack a bit of patriotism now and then. We tear at the soul of this country a lot. But you've seen the other side. You've seen both sides.
Yeah.
What do you tell the people out there, especially with an election around the corner?
Well,
look at them.
Well, it's a little bit corny to speak directly to the camera, but
no, it's not corny. Go ahead.
What I was telling Jeff off camera is it's absolutely right that the press and individuals speak truth to power. That where governments fail, where there is inadequacy, where there's deficiency, people say, make it better. We deserve better. But applaud what is good in Kenya. There is an awful lot of good amongst all communities, amongst all religions, north, south, east and west. And I think what I've said all along is if Kenya can harness its potential and go in this direction of fulfilling its future, the future is going to be very bright and good. But those individuals, those journalists and others that just peddle false stories, there needs to be editorial control to not bring the profession into disrepute. We've seen false stories after false stories that have been written, palpably wrong stories. And yet it seems that editors of certain newspapers and media houses on all sides don't bring their journalists to book, as long as it sells papers, as long as people do watch the TV. Anything goes in Kenya. Kenya deserves better than that. The people of Kenya deserve better than that. And I think if all of us are responsible according to our own sphere of influence, Kenya's future is very bright, and I pray it is, because I genuinely love this country and I love the people. There's a reason why all these foreigners that come to Kenya never wanted to leave, and it's really, sometimes they may be tiresome, but it's because this country is really not just physically beautiful, not only a lovely climate. I have personally been very touched, and my team, by the kindness that people of all communities, the Kikuyus, the Kalenjins, the Kisis, the Kambas, people from coast, all communities have shown. Kenyans are such loving people, and yet we saw the 2007-2008 violence that was not a fiction. It took place. What we should all aspire to do, all of us individually, myself included, is try to be the best that we can be. And if each Kenyan tries to be the best they can, this country is unstoppable. Not just in the Olympics, not just in sport, in every sphere of life, the potential of this country is absolutely mega. And you can change the world, not just Kenya.
My friend.
Thank you, Jeff.
Good to see you, man.
Thank you.
Great words.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Well done. Good to see you.
And likewise.
Good luck. If I ever need a good lawyer, can I call you?
Anytime. You've got me on speed dial, I hope. You're always in trouble with your fire extinguisher.
Oh, I haven't used it today.
This is a smoke screen. Maybe the prosecution should use it. Thanks so much.
Smoke screen.
Thanks so much.
Well done. Karim Khan, Queen's Counsel, Lead Counsel for Deputy President William Ruto. Wise words, folks, for a man who's not even from here, a man who has not even spent that much time in this country, but he feels the soul and the pulse of this nation. And what he says rings true, should ring true to every Kenyan out there. He feels the country, folks. Maybe we should too. It is that simple. It takes all hands on deck. And as I keep saying, we have to keep talking, because the moment we stop talking is the moment we start fighting. And you do not want to go down that slippery slope. Keep tweeting at Koinange Jeff, the hashtag Ruto sang free, and then we'll get Karim a Twitter handle one of these days as well. Tomorrow night, yes, he is going to be on. The tyranny of numbers man, the political scientist, the hypotheses man, Mutahi Ngunyi, will be on right here on Jeff Koinange Live at the Villa Rosa Kempinski. Thanks so much for watching. Good night. Good luck. God bless Kenya.
Jeff Koinange Live in association with Jameson.